Can anyone in the chat put either something about yourself? Who are you? It can be that you're a person of color, a student of color, um, daughter of immigrants, son of immigrants, etc. Anything you might want to include and say about yourself. I see junior at UC Berkeley, born and raised in Oakland, Yemeni American, okay. Junior at Holy Names in Oakland, another person from Holy Names. First gen, Black Apina, daughter of immigrants, first gen college grad. UCLA, woohoo. UC Berkeley, woohoo. I'm not biased, just felt like saying it. Recent grad from UC Berkeley. Okay, go Bears, yes. Okay, we're going to learn a little bit more. So we went over who I am. Now we're going to go over into my career trajectory. When I say my identity truly creates me and who I am as a person, I truly mean it. And I say it because in my experiences, in my jobs, my fellowships, volunteer, internships, all that good stuff, it has truly been like a very interesting walk of life, as I like to say it. I started off cleaning houses, but my mother is an immigrant woman. My parents are immigrants, hard workers. My father did construction. My mother cleaned houses for a living. So what was my first job? For many of you, it was many things. I like to say, and I didn't include on here, but actually I was a translator before I even cleaned houses, before I did anything. My parents are still learning English. They don't know English fluently. They're doing their best as they migrated to this country and are doing their best to give their children and themselves a better life. So I like to, the first thing I did was I was a translator. I was like that 8-year-old child that was translating for my parents, yet I was still learning English. I cleaned houses with my mom in different areas. It was here in the Bay Area. Sometimes we traveled, etc. Grading papers. I like to say in high school, I sort of got a side gig of helping a teacher grade papers. You might be like, oh my goodness, they let you do that. It was totally okay. There was a rubric. It was either like a B, C, D type of thing, nothing too technical. Tutoring. I tutored for free. I literally did. And I say this because I'm going to make a point at the end of this slide. But I tutored for free to gain experience, to do something in the summer when I was an undergrad. Not only was it, I obviously wanted to get paid, and that is very real for us first gen students of color coming from low income backgrounds. Getting paid is real, and it's something we look into an internship. Luckily, I had a fellowship who covered my costs that summer. So I was like, you know what? I need to do something to engage with the community and gain some skills. So I did some tutoring to, I think it was like the youngest child was like 5, and then 6, 7, and 8. I was a peer coach at UC Berkeley. I helped students who were either on the verge of getting on academic probation or they were on academic probation, or also some students that were just athletes and were trying to make sure they were on track, etc. I worked with so many students in undergrad, various things, really great. I was then a coordinator, I like to say. And what I mean by coordinator is I coordinated a program that actually was the short introduction to Kaiser Permanente, where I worked with Kaiser and an organization called Represented Leadership. And I essentially supported students in getting their resumes done, getting their projects done, developing their projects, getting things up and running. It was very simple, not too hard, but again, it was an exposure to corporate and an exposure to a job that was actually paying me well, or I thought it was paying me well, but there's many opportunities. Before I go into how I was a manager, I like to say that I took part in many things in undergrad, as I'm sure many of you do as well. I took part in different organizations that were nonprofits, that were known as clubs on campus per se. And really what I gained on it was I was an intern. I was on the steering committee and different things. And all of these experiences really created who I am now and sort of helped me determine what I wanted to do in life. Still discovering, but it has guided me that way. And one of the things is I learned how to time manage. I learned how to coordinate events with multiple partners. My dogs are barking. I am sorry. Multiple partners, such as, I don't know, the people in charge of booking rooms, the people in charge of the janitors. The janitors were our best friends in undergrad. Can everyone hear me? Sorry, I feel like somebody might be trying to say something.
You sound great.
Sound great? Okay, perfect. But making friends, I made essentially relationships and networks with everyone on campus when I worked at UC Berkeley and when I attended there, making sure that any club, any organization I was part of, we had our events up and running, had all the tech stuff set up. If we didn't know, we knew. If not, we knew someone that knew someone. And I say this to say is I wasn't paid. I know many of you are part of maybe your business associations, maybe any tech programs or organizations on campus, just to name a few. Those are very, very detrimental and really, really can either give you a lot of opportunities or also just limit you in terms of your coursework. So having a balance is very important. Before I go into these next things, I want you all to put in the chat what jobs, fellowships, and volunteer internships have you had? This can be you saying a yes, I have, or no, I haven't. Were they paid versus unpaid? Let's see what interactions we get on here. You can send them directly to me if you're not comfortable putting it to everyone. That is completely fine. Both, mainly unpaid. Okay. Yes, both. Yes, unpaid and paid. Okay. Anyone else? I'll give a couple seconds. Appreciate y'all engaging, by the way. That's really good. I'm not talking, or if I'm talking to some blank screens, at least I can see you interact in the chat. Okay, the reason I ask is because it's important to note that even if some opportunities are paid versus unpaid, they're equally, if not more, important to developing your skills, to putting those skills on your resume. When I applied to my first job, which was a manager role during undergrad, and I started right after undergrad during COVID, which was very hard and very, very difficult, I learned that I didn't have a lot of work experience that was paid. I believe that I had to have been paid in order for that opportunity or that experience to have gone on my resume. And I'm here to say, no, it doesn't need to essentially be paid to go on your resume. Any experience is worth it. I put that I tutored. I didn't say that I tutored for free, but I tutored, and that itself had skills that I gained, had responsibilities that I took on, some opportunities that I created, some programming that I created, some things that I managed, etc. It is all equally, if not more important, to put on your resume. These are things that developed you as a person, whether, again, if it's tutoring, if it's helping someone out at a center, whatever it is, put it on your resume, learn how to market it, learn how to put it in the words and in the language that potentially a job description will have. Because of that, and because I discovered that I could put stuff that were unpaid, my resume went from being absolutely nothing to having more things on it, which filled it up essentially. My first job was as manager of the Richmond Promise, which is one of the organizations as part of the Northern California College Promise Coalition. I was the first manager of college student success and career success, and I was very, very happy in that role actually. But I say this to say is I soon became a project manager at Gap Inc. So I'm here representing Gap Inc. And I say this to say that my transition is unique. Again, there's a lot of transferable skills that you can have moving from nonprofit to corporate, and also just coming into corporate as a whole and into tech. And the next slide, I'll go over what that looks like. And most recently just became the Senior Talent Development Specialist for my current team, a random promotion. And I want you to know that sometimes you might be feeling like you're stressed, like you might be so conscious that you're not doing things right. Yet other people are seeing your work, they value you, and promotions will come. Tasks will be assigned to you that you maybe were like, I never envisioned myself to do this, but hey, I'm here and I'm doing the thing. So I appreciate everyone sharing, and I see something in the chat. And thank you. Thank you. It's a new position, but I'm excited to really be here as an alumni of the programs and really support you all. Oh, not changing. Okay. So you might be wondering, how was my transition from nonprofit to corporate? What did that look like, and what tips do I have? So in the nonprofit sector, and this is generally what I did across all the nonprofits that I either got paid for or didn't get paid for, and just did it as a volunteer thing to put on my resume or to really something that I loved. I managed campus partnerships, whether it was working again with the people that were in charge of booking rooms on campus, whether it's someone in charge of providing services to students, etc. I coordinated events and meetings with students, leadership, and vendors. That is something that I did in every single role that I had, again, whether it was paid versus unpaid. I provided one-on-one support to students with financial aid, college applications, mental health, and more. And I say this because I love students, and if you know me and if you reach out on LinkedIn, like I will respond. I like to give back just the same way that people gave back to me, and some of those people are on this call. So shout out to them. And lastly, organizing college success workshops for students. How many of you feel free to put in the chat have helped organize an event on campus, whether it's with your organization, your association, a program. Again, this could be like you helped carry boxes from one place to another. You helped set up the tech, or you helped get people in, take attendance, anything like that. Does anyone have that experience? Feel free to put like a yes or a no in the chat. Come on, I know some of you have hosted some events. Yes. Love supporting the community. Likewise. Yep. Okay. So that's what I did in nonprofit. I did things for free, and some things I got paid, and it was okay. But my transition to corporate, it was unique. I was not searching for a job. And I say that very proudly because I was fortunate to get a job during COVID. I was fortunate to have, to be healthy, to be getting paid, to have opportunities to support the community, help students gain access to resources that they needed, whether it was applying to food stamps, applying to health insurance, etc. I did all of that in the nonprofit sector, and I was happy and I felt fulfilled. I want to give a shout out to Lorna, who's on here. Lorna and Mare are amazing people, by the way, and they're hosting this event. But Lorna sort of gave me a job opportunity. She sent it my way. I was like, oh, it doesn't hurt. Like, I'm going to apply. It doesn't hurt. Number one tip, you will never know the response to anything unless you try it out. The worst thing and the worst thing that you can potentially hear is either a no or a no response. And that is okay. And I want to emphasize that and normalize it, because sometimes we reach out to connect with people. Sometimes we apply to a job. We don't even hear back. Sometimes we think we're well qualified, et cetera, but it's not us. It's sometimes the organizations has different priorities at the moment, and maybe already had someone hired beforehand. Oh, I see. Don't tell yourself no. Let them tell you no. Yes. And when they tell you no, don't let that define you. Let that encourage you is what I'll add. So now moving to corporate. I'm now in Gap Inc. My transition again, I wasn't looking for a job. I just applied, and people kept advocating for me, and sort of like basically they found the job for me. And it's very unique. I can go on and on about that experience. If you're interested, ping me, connect with me. I'm more than open to do so. But sort of now in corporate, what I do is I still manage partnerships. The only exception is that I manage partnerships with huge other corporate companies such as Microsoft, Pluralsight, Oracle, etc. Those are just a few to name. I coordinate global events for employees, leadership, and the company as a whole. These are updates in Gap Tech. I focus on Gap Tech. And for those of you that don't know, Gap Inc. Is not Gap the brand. They own Gap the store, Banana Republic, Athleta, and Old Navy. So it's global events across everyone that works. I provide assistance to 3,000 plus Gap Tech employees in learning and growing within the company. I say this because I noted that I help students one-on-one support. I still do the same thing. It's just not students. It's now adults that are in tech and they're employees at a corporate company. I still help them in learning and growing, whether it's figuring out how to access a portal, how to apply to get permission to get a certification, or sign up for a course, whatever it might be. I'm doing the same thing. It's just at a different setting and with different expectations. Last thing, supporting instructor-led courses in North America and Hyderabad Distribution Center. I'm no longer just hosting workshops for people at a college campus or people within my city that are in the scholarship that I was part of, for instance. I'm helping people globally, and I think it's really amazing to mention because you never know what's out there and how transferable skills can be until you try it again, until you apply, etc. So I highly encourage you. I'm getting a lot of things in the chat. I'll look at it right now. But I highly encourage you, take a moment to list your skills, which brings me to the next slide. Some action steps. Create your brand. I cannot emphasize this enough. LinkedIn became my best friend. I know some of you go on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, etc. Likewise, I make my balance. I go on LinkedIn equally, if not more than those social medias. And sometimes I'm not kidding. My mom was like, "You're always on Facebook," because LinkedIn sort of looks like Facebook because it's blue. But that's how involved I became with LinkedIn. I started interviewing people, asking them to connect with them. I started brainstorming my career interest. What was my ideal job? What are the skills that I have and that I'm good at, or other skills that people think I'm good at? It's always good to get people's inputs, especially those that have worked with you, etc. And lastly, reach out. Email, message individuals on LinkedIn to learn more about their journeys, tips, advice, and stay connected. One thing I'll say is always say please and thank you. These people are busy. And if they take the moment to speak with you, it is great. Own it, do it, etc. Like make it your own. Get what you want out of it. Have an agenda. It's gonna sound funny, but have an agenda ahead of time. Saying, you know what, I want to know where this person went to school. I want to know how they got into corporate. I wonder how they got into tech, etc. So please, please, please ask away. All right. I know that was very quick, and I don't know if we have time for Q&A, but if anyone has questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I am starting to look at the chat box now. And thanks everyone for clarifying Gap Inc. That's great. Any questions that anyone has? Now's the perfect time. Or Mayor, feel free to let me know if we have no time, which is fine.
Mayor hopped off, but let's take one question, Cynthia.
Okay. Any question? What was the interview process like for positions like yours? So I'm transparent with this. My experience was very unique. I applied to, it's very unique, but essentially I went through 5 interviews, a total of 8. But that's because I ended up doing 3 jobs. And essentially, like, it got referred to me. I stayed connected to the recruiters. They gave me a lot of input. They advocated for me. One thing I will add to that question, though, is that I want to say it was intense, but it was intense because I was so nervous. I knew nothing about corporate. I asked so many people what to expect, Lorna being one of them. And one thing I will highlight is it was unique because I knew and I researched the company good enough. I knew what they valued, and I knew that I felt valued and that I did my research and I felt comfortable speaking to these people. And I think one thing I'll say is it's important to know who your networks are and what info you can get from them. Again, Gap Inc. I had never envisioned myself working there, never really knew that they owned all these companies. Now I do, I know a lot. But really it's about knowing the company, knowing who's going to interview you. And knowing that really helped me because I wasn't no longer just, it's some random person who's going to interview me, but it's somebody who's a director, someone who has experience that I know about and that I'm able to ask questions to them. Likewise, the same way that they can ask me questions. And I'll just answer this very quickly before we transition. I'm a high school senior right now. What do you recommend me to do to prepare to college and exploring more career? I would highly encourage you to take advantage of any programs, any fellowships, any resources on your high school right now. I took part of every single program that I could apply to, and I'm not kidding. Like, I was never home, and it was good because I had fun with my friends. But I learned a lot, and I had a lot of experience, a lot of connections to help me fill out my college applications, to help me get my experiences reviewed, help me determine what career interests I had, what majors should I apply to. I'm in staying connected to them even now. I still have access to my Upward Bound advisor, for instance. Like, she's not an advisor, but she still connects with me. And knowing that they're a resource to let you know, okay, hey, like, you're doing everything good, or you're missing this, like, you need to start exploring for this, you need to start applying to jobs, etc. Stay connected, take advantage of those resources, and always advocate for yourself. I cannot really express this enough, but you're yourself are your own advocate sometimes. And in that case, never, never settle. Always seek for more until you get what you want. And I think with that, we run out of time, if I'm correct. So I'm actually going to stop sharing. I will put my LinkedIn link in the chat. And I highly encourage people, please connect, stay connected. I am always free to answer questions. Again, I'm an alumni of the program, always want to stay engaged. And I'm always here. Like, I'm not going anywhere, still in the Bay Area. If anyone's in the Bay Area, if we have events, I will make sure to share it. But appreciate all of your time. And I think it's time to move back to the main session. Thanks, everyone.